All right, 3, 2, 1. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, guys. Welcome to the Ummahpreneur live podcast, your favorite podcast that features Muslim entrepreneurs at the top of their game. And in this special episode, I have with me none other than Sister Zakiyyah Alexander. Now, Zakiyyah Alexander is a Hair-Scalp. Walaikum salam. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you. I want to introduce her because she's just an incredible entrepreneur human being. She's a Hair-Scalp specialist, a kitchen alchemist, and founder at Blumseed. And Blumseed, if you haven't heard of them before, they're a brand that specializes in personalized hair care specifically for women of color. So if you ever watched Madam CJ Walker on Netflix, you know what that's like. There is a certain product quality and a certain product tailorment, essentially, that needs to happen for a woman of color. And she's doing that. And she's taken up that charge and that activity for herself. And they have a luxury line of cruelty-free hair care products that are free from harmful chemicals and toxins. And they're all made using completely natural ingredients of the highest quality, guys. So if you haven't heard of them, definitely check them out. And today I have the founder herself, Sister Zakiyyah. Thank you for being on the show. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Alhamdulillah, it's really a pleasure to have you and for you to be here. And I'm so excited to dive into all the topics that we're going to talk about today in terms of your products, your head spa that you recently opened in Toronto, as well as just the journey that you went through to create this amazing brand. So we really start off every single episode with asking the guests the same question, which is, can you tell us a little bit about the journey, the transformation that you went through that inspired you to become an entrepreneur and create Blumseed?
Well, I'll start by saying that I actually initially started out by going to a fashion school. I went to the International Academy of Design for Fashion, and I thought that's initially what I wanted to do. But being there really exposed me to the world of beauty and creating collections and creating niche clothing. It taught me a lot about business. And so that's originally how I started out. When we created collections, they were for different seasons. And it's so interesting when I fast forward today and think of it, products, you create products based on the seasons. So if it's really cold outside, you got to change it up. Yeah. And when it's hot, you got to change it up. And it also exposed me in terms of creating stuff that looked really beautiful. So when I think about packaging and stuff like that, fast forward to today, I really think about packaging and color. So the world of fashion and beauty really exposed me to that whole big industry. Mm-hmm. So that was initially how it started.
Amazing.
But also, I am from an entrepreneurial family. So family that my grandparents made livelihoods with their hands, cobbling and molding. Like if I think about my grandfather, he was a cobbler and he had his own shoe store. And my grandmother, she made these beautiful floral bouquets out of like molds that she created, wax bouquets actually. And that was her business. My mom, growing up, always her displaying true beauty in her natural hair and just really taking care of herself. Mm-hmm. And then my father at the time, he was a musician. He still is a musician, but his incessant need on detail and perfection. So having that sort of upbringing really inspired me to create the beauty line that I have today and to become an entrepreneur. So that's really how I started. For me, it's just been a really wonderful journey. And yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, of course. But so you basically grew up in an environment of entrepreneurship, which is really interesting because a lot of the people that maybe watch this podcast or listen to it, they sometimes haven't maybe grown up in that specific environment and they decided to do it themselves. Yourself growing up within an environment like this, has it affected you in any way in starting and growing your business? Has it maybe given you some certain edges in terms of mindset, knowing that, there's going to be struggle in business, there's going to be hardship, but you have to tough it out? Things that maybe, we don't really necessarily are aware of if we're just starting from scratch and we think, it's going to be easy or, eventually we'll be very successful. And we can have this notion of entrepreneurship that may be a little bit more glamorized than the real thing, but you've witnessed the real thing. Has that impacted you? Has that helped you in your journey?
I would say it's definitely helped me because before even deciding to make products and open up a head spa, I tried many other things creatively, and it never really stopped me. When I didn't succeed in those areas, it just made me keep going. So watching my parents, seeing my father always working hard, that sort of kept me going and kept me positive throughout every challenge along the way. So I think it's been really beneficial in having that as an example growing up.
Alhamdulillah, definitely. Having those examples and being surrounded by that energy is just so powerful. And that's why even for entrepreneurs that start off or that are growing their business, I always recommend, get yourself in a place where you're surrounded by other entrepreneurs and you have that environment, because it's so important to have that support and those other people that understand what you're going through. Now, Blumseed, Zakiyyah, you created a brand, and it's specifically a hair care brand for women of color. And we know women of color have a specific texture. They have specific needs when it comes to hair. Why? What prompted you, I guess, to take that decision and go down that specific path?
Well, it was partly from my experience. When I decided to do the big chop back in 2004, my hair was permed, and I decided that I wanted to go natural. I was looking for products for my own hair, and I really couldn't find anything. And so eventually, with the encouragement of my family, it inspired me to start creating my own products based on things that I had learned from my mother, little recipes that she had used for self-care, and my grandmother growing herbs in her backyard in Trinidad. It just inspired me to say, hey, I can start this. I remember what grandma used to use. I remember what my mom used to use. And so I decided to do that. So that experience of not having those things inspired me to, encourage me. So I'm sort of getting lost here. Really prompted me to decide that, okay, you know what? There's nothing for women of color. And then experiences with like talking to friends and talking to family about their hair struggles. And, you hear, oh, well, either my hair is permed, it's not growing, I don't know what to do, or those that were natural and they had nothing for their hair, whether it be colleagues or friends. So having that same conversation over and over and over again, I was like, maybe there's a hole in the market. Maybe there's something missing here. So initially it didn't come right away, but just having those conversations over and over really inspired me to have a brand for women of color. And not that, like currently I have clients that are not necessarily maybe have kinky hair. They maybe just want healthy hair and they come. But I know from my experience, they're not having a place for women to go, especially hijab women. That's like another layer. For them to go to a place where it's private. For myself even, that was like, okay, there's something here that's missing. So I guess it's a mixture.
And there's two things that you mentioned that I want to touch upon. Number one is something that I always tell, my coaches and the entrepreneurs that I work with, and they always come back and ask, why do we have to do this? And you just said it yourself, which is the market research. Okay. Yeah. The fact that you went and you realized you had a problem, you were facing some sort of struggle in your life, and you thought, well, are there other people who can also relate to this problem, who can relate to this struggle? And you mentioned it yourself, you talked to friends and family, and they also expressed these same issues, these same struggles that they were going through with their hair. And so you realize, look, there's a bigger problem here. And that in itself is really the foundation of any business. It's when you talk to other people and realize, well, this is a common problem. And so if I bring a solution, there's potential for something successful to happen here. And that's really the core foundation of any great business. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that, SubhanAllah. That's amazing. The second thing is, I think you touched upon, and I think we were talking now in the context of your head spa, which was created a little bit later, and we'll also touch on a bit later. But from what I understand, it's a space only for women, and it's completely private so that even hijabis can come and get their hair treated. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It is. And that was really important for me. Like just talking to friends, I don't have any place to go. And it was like, you know what? No, we need a place to go that we can do our hair and take care of our hair and feel beautiful and practice self-care like everybody else. So I seen it as something that was really important for me to do, given the fact that I had the ability to do it.
Amazing. That's amazing, mashallah. And just to know that that's out there is just, I love it, because that's what we need. And we need these spaces where, I really want to make sure, and this is why I love to promote entrepreneurs like yourself, that when we're building these things as Muslims, we understand, okay, there's needs for certain people. We had Ola, she's another great entrepreneur here on a few past episodes. I think it was number 15 or 14. And she essentially helps women get into swimming, Muslim women get into swimming, right? Where there might be stigma around that for covered women to get into swimming, but she's trying to help break that barrier and help them get in there. And you as well, you're helping Muslim women be like, hey, listen, there might not be standard hair salons for you out there, but I'll make sure that there's a space for you where you can still get the same amount of treatment, and you can still do the things that other women can do. Just because you're wearing the hijab shouldn't stop you. And I absolutely love that. That's amazing. Now, I want to rewind a bit because we're going to touch on the head spa a little bit later in the podcast, but I want to share with people really the journey and the steps that you took once you had that idea, which is what a lot of people that listen to this podcast are going through. They have a certain idea of a business they might want to start, or maybe they've started and they're in those initial steps, right? And you had the idea, you realized this is what I wanted to do. You were initially in fashion, then you transitioned to hair care. What then were the steps that you took to turn it just from an idea that you had into an actual brand and product that you sold online? What was that journey like, if you can share it with me?
Mm-hmm. Well, initially, I didn't really have it totally mapped out. It just sort of revealed itself along the way. Mm-hmm. So like I was saying, when I decided to do the big chop and not having any products for my hair, and then saying, okay, I'm going to make some stuff for myself. Yeah. It then evolved to making products for friends and family. And with the encouragement and the fact that they really loved the product, I then started selling with the encouragement of my mom. She would sell the products at work. And then I started selling the products at work. So it just kind of evolved, and I was like, okay, this is really good. And I started doing research on more products that I can make and things that I was using. So it evolved from there. And then after making the products for friends and family and selling it, I then used the money that I made to reinvest that money and get actual proper labels. Before I was making the labels, and I was using dollar store jars. So I then bought some jars from like a Canadian bottle company and jar company. And then after that period, I started, had clients, friends and family come to my house. I just had an epiphany one day. I said, you know what? I'm doing these treatments on Saturdays. I'm taking care of my hair. This seems to really work for me. It'd be really nice to do this. And I would just invite like colleagues, like, hey, you want a treatment? Or, we were talking about your hair the other day. Why don't you come to my house? I'll give you a treatment. And then that helped to build the blueprint and what was working. And I really, really loved it. And my sister, being in hair care, she decided to go the hair care way. She said, you know what? I have a few clients that are struggling with their hair. They need some help. Why don't you come and help? And I helped, and they were like, you should really have this service. Like, I really love this. And so from there, my sister said, okay, those products that you're making, why don't you just put some in the shop? Like, why don't you, I'll put a little cabinet together and you have them here and you sell them. So it just evolved. I just kept on going. I didn't give up. I just kept going with it. So after that, fast forward, I had my child, and my last child, I should say.
Oh, mashallah, mabruk.
And you know what? I'm going to take a year off work, and I'm going to just work at my sister's salon, and I'm going to try this out, and I'm going to give it a real shot. And when I did that, alhamdulillah, my clientele started building and started building. And I think it wasn't until that point when I was like, okay, you know what? I really need to get really serious about who is my clientele? What's my why? Why am I doing this? So it forced me to, and I was moving on to like venturing on my own. I sort of had that, at that point, I was like, okay, I do want to have my own spot. It would be really, really nice. But okay, then I need to solidify why I'm doing this, how I'm going to do this, who's my clientele, how much do I want to make, and those sort of things, and sort of like the business stuff, because I'm good with the creative stuff, but it forced me to think of more of the business side. And then when I ventured out on my own, which was really scary, and it was a leap of faith, I said, you know what? I believe in this. I know Allah has me. I'm going to take a leap of faith and I'm going to go out on my own because I have a group of sisters behind me supporting me saying, you can do this. So I decided to do that. And then I think it was really when I was on my own, when I had real responsibilities now, I said to myself, okay, I need to really plan things out. I need to plan what my next steps are going to be. I need to plan what social media is going to look like and what kind of posts I need to do and who that clientele is and how I want them to feel. So it was gradual, but every step of the way, you get more serious, you get with your paper and pen and your book, and you really try to really nail it down in terms of what are your next steps and where you really want this to go. So that was really my journey. And to anyone else wanting to, do this, I would say really sit down with paper and pen and plan and get really detail about what is your why. So in the end, that came out, but in the beginning, that wasn't the case.
Amazing, mashallah. So there's a few things that I want to highlight here. So you kind of went through a journey where you really started first in an organic way. You just, your sister worked in a hair salon, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So she worked in a hair salon and she was in that industry and you were working on hair care products and you were just kind of making them yourself. You were the one actually brewing these products, right? Yeah, which is amazing. This is why we call you the kitchen alchemist. So, you were brewing the products and you just went and started giving her some that she can maybe share with her clients. Yeah. And then you went and, put some of those products within that space and it slowly grew from there. Then you decided, okay, there's interest. I'm selling it to friends. I'm selling it to people that I know. Let me start to build up, a social media presence and a website. And to do that, of course, just like you mentioned, you had to get very clear on your branding, your marketing message. So you had to figure out your why, who was going to be your customer, how you had to position your brand, all of that good stuff. And it was kind of a gradual growth from there. And that's really, I think, the best way to grow these kind of brands, which is to start with, okay, are my friends, family, people that I might know, would they be interested in buying this? People that have this problem. If they are, then chances are other people will. If they aren't, then it's going to be a bit difficult to sell it to strangers as well. So that's a great first step that you took, which is amazing, mashallah. And for people listening, really the best thing is to just kind of create a little beta product. And I'm guessing your first few jars, they didn't have the Blumseed branding. They weren't, this perfect, nice little jar and right?
Right from the computer, black and white.
That's it. It was like in a jar. You mentioned you went out to Dollarama, you got those jars, but
I got the best ones I could get. That's
it. And you made it work. And that's really what I can tell you guys. If you want to create a product yourself, guys, get a few little kind of iterations, an initial test version done that's maybe a little bit cheaper and just see, is there interest, right? Is there people who are willing to buy this? And then grow from there and make sure that you define your why, you find out your marketing message before you start to create the Shopify and all that good stuff. Now, Sister Zakiyah, one thing that I do have to ask you, and I think it's going to make for some good conversation. What was the biggest challenge once you went from that step when, you were at the hair salon and you were starting to share these products? You're starting to see that growth and then transition to also growing that online and really trying to grow that online presence. What was the biggest challenge there to transition from retail to online?
For me personally, I think it was mostly believing in myself.
Okay, interesting.
It was just kind of getting through that hurdle of knowing that Allah has me. Getting past the fear and really just going out and saying, you know what, this is what my purpose is, and believing that this is what my purpose is. I mean, there's times when I still waver, I have those moments where I'm like, the next thing that I'm deciding to do, and it's like, that fear kind of comes in. I think with every step of the way, just going on, like when I opened up my website and I started from there, even just before, it was like a little scary, but really conditioning my mind that Allah put me here for a purpose, just like everybody else. And I need to believe in that. And the minute I was able to believe in that, and then the moments that I'm able to believe in that, I'm able to bypass that and really focus in on, okay, what's the next post? Okay, what do I want this website to? The vision really comes to life. It becomes very clear when my mind is not fogged by fear and what I'm thinking may happen and that sort of thing. So I think it's more getting over the fear, getting over the anxiety, and just really believing that Allah has a plan. Allah put me on here for a purpose.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah. And that's really, I think, one of the biggest things. And it's something that to this day, I think every person struggles with, no matter what stage they're at. I mean, there's always, I don't think, that confidence and that belief in yourself is something that you either have or don't have. I think it's something you have to train every single day to build inside of you, right? And there are moments that are more difficult than others. We might be facing a few more challenges. We might be going through a phase where business is getting a little bit slower, or things are not maybe going the way that we want them to go. But that's when it's most important to reinforce that positive, self-talk that we have within us, and really remind ourselves of these basic principles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a path for us, and that whatever He wills for us to happen will happen, right? And that's really just so important. So I appreciate you sharing that. Now, we already have a few questions coming into the comments, guys. So make sure to keep bringing them on, because when we get to our Q&A, I want to make sure that we're doing rapid fire. Inshallah. So keep bringing in the questions, guys. Make sure that you're commenting on. I'm really happy that you're enjoying this discussion. Sister, you eventually started a spa, right? So you grew the online brand, alhamdulillah. So you have the website, the Instagram, all that good stuff. And now you're like, okay, next step, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, I want to start a spa, and I want to make sure that it also accommodates Muslim women. So it's private. They can come in, they can take off their hijab, which is a beautiful and amazing thing. Now, some people might listen to that and be like, well, retail, that sounds like it costs a lot of money. That sounds like it's going to be very complicated. At what stage did you feel like you were ready to go down the retail path and open up your own spa? And what was that process like? At what phase in your business do you think it's a good phase to do that for someone that's listening to this?
Well, for me, when I decided that I wanted to open up my own space, a lot of it was encouragement from my family. They really believed in me, even at times when I didn't believe in myself. They're like, you can do this. You can do this. And the women that would come through when I was working with my sister, they would say, you know what, you need to have some, like, this is not a want, this is a need. Like, we need this for our hair. So I felt really invigorated by hearing that. And so just having that constant support really it made me decide that, no, I am going to go out and do this. And even though I signed that paper, that lease to go in and open up this new space, that was scary. I didn't know what can happen. But I said, you know what? I am praying. Allah has me. And I kept trying to condition my mind that was, what was going to happen, and I was going to be fine. So it really is a leap of faith. It really is a leap of faith. You just decide that that's what you're going to do, and you just stick with it. So for me, that's what it was. And for those, I would say, just take the leap. Sometimes I don't know if there's like the perfect time. I think when you just feel it, when you feel excited, if it invigorates you, and as long as you know that the need is there as well, of course, you just got to do it. And that was it for me. The need was there. It made me so excited to think, just the thought around it. And I decided that, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Amazing, mashallah. And that's, I think, a pretty real and honest answer, which is, there isn't a set, and I think it's really true for almost all businesses. There isn't a set time to get to that next level. There isn't a set time where, everything's going to be working out perfectly and that's it. You just smoothly expand. It's always going to be a risk. It's always going to be a challenge. But once you feel it, then go for it. But you also mentioned a word of warning, which is also important, guys. Make sure you have that proof of concept first. Make sure that you actually have established interest in your brand and your product, and that people are buying them, which is a big thing. And you have that, mashallah, which is awesome. Now, for the head spa right now, how long has this been open?
On my own, it's been a year.
Mashallah, amazing.
That, when I was working with my sister, was for 2 years.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not new on my own.
That's beautiful, mashallah. And not only do you also have that space for Muslim women, it's also for non-Muslim women. It's really for all women. Is that correct?
Exactly. Most of my clientele is not Muslim, which is very interesting. Most of them are not Muslim. But it's for Muslim, non-Muslim sisters. I do cater to people who don't necessarily have textured hair. Maybe they just want healthy hair. You know, most of them just want healthy hair, and they come in. I'm open to that as well. So
that's amazing. And I have a question for you, and I want to ask that, and it's really just to kind of get a funny story out of you or an interesting statement. But it's, you know, you mentioned you cater lots of non-Muslim women, right? They walk into the head spa, or you know, they might go on Blumseed, and they realize, oh wow, this is hair care products by a woman that wears the hijab. Have you ever gotten any funny questions about that? Any interesting discussions that came from that?
You know, it's interesting how, for the most part, they haven't really asked me questions about my hair or anything.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay.
You know what? So before this, I wasn't wearing hijab. When I started making the products, I wasn't wearing hijab. And a lot of my friends and family, they would say, well, how are you going to do this? Because nobody gets to see your hair anymore. How are they going to know that your products really work? And I used to question myself, like, really, how are they going to know? Because I took so much pride in taking care of my hair. And that was like, I was like a walking model because of my hair. I was, you know, using that to, you know, show, you know, that these products work. But then when I decided to cover on my own, I did kind of struggle with that for a little bit. And then I guess I just had an epiphany one day, and I said, you know what? I'm going to be me. And I'm going to do exactly what our faith says, which is cleanliness, taking care of yourself, the way you treat people, the way you walk in the world. I'm going to really focus on that. And inshallah, that hopefully will shine through. People will be able to look past that and see me for who I am. And now fast forward, sometimes I talk to my clients, like some of them have seen my hair. There's times that, you know, I know it's just me and them, and I can take off my hijab and they're like, oh wow. And I may ask them, you know, how did you think my hair was? They're like, tell me. Well, I see how you dress. You're always dressed really nice. You're always clean. I assume that your hair must look on point because of the way you carry yourself. So it's really interesting to hear how they felt about it. But I really focused on just being a sincere person, being truthful, coming out, you know, clean clothes and dressed really professionally. And that's where my focus basically went to.
That's amazing, mashallah. And I just want to highlight like just how amazing that is and how powerful that is, guys. Because for all of you listening right now, for all of you watching, to think about that for a second. I mean, that Sister Zakiyyah decided, not only did she create this brand, it's for hair care, it's for women of color, and you decided to cover, mashallah, which is amazing. May Allah accept that from you. And the fact that you decided to do that, and your specialty is literally hair care for women. I mean, just the amount of courage that took and the amount of reward, inshallah, that you get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that is going to be immense. And, you know, a lot of people would have said, you know, maybe that's my company. What's going to happen to that? My risk, you know, what's going to happen to that? This is, you know, I have to do this. I have to provide for the family. I can't cover. This is going to cause issues. People, I'm going to get questions. I'm going to get judged. I mean, people who don't even have that as a barrier have mindset blocks in regards to, you know, wearing the hijab, right? And I understand that. I'm definitely not, you know, downplaying that. I mean, I can't even imagine how it is to just walk with your religion on your sleeve all day long, literally. And, you know, especially with the way, unfortunately, Islam is perceived sometimes. So I'm not downplaying that at all. But the fact that you not only had those challenges that everyone has, but on top of that, you had the, you know, the hair care brand, literally, that you specialize in, and you still decided to go for that is just amazing, mashallah. And it's a testament, guys, for all of you listening, to the fact that if ever you face an issue in your business, if ever you face an issue in your job, in your employment, in any situation where you realize I might have to compromise on my deen to make money, to succeed in my job, to grow this business, that is never a valid excuse. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not reward that for you. But for Sister Zakiyyah, who's still decided, I'm going to go forward with this, and I will not compromise on my deen, I will not let that become an issue. You can, as you can see, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has still allowed her to grow this business, and her clients are very happy to work with her. And, you know, there's no issues there. So for all of you that might be facing these mindset blocks, I just really want to highlight this because it's such a beautiful point, and I think it's just an amazing thing to touch upon. So really, thank you for sharing that, sister. It's really an awesome testament to just the strength of your faith, and also just the power that you have as an entrepreneur. So Sister, let's ask you a few more questions here before we dive into the Q&A, inshallah, guys. If you guys have questions, make sure to drop them in the comments again. And if you're listening to this, the recorded version, make sure to join our group to interact with our guests. When it came to right now where you are, so you have the head spa, you have the online store. My question to you now is, and I think this is more for me, as to kind of pick your brain a little bit, but how do you manage everything? How do you really wake up every single day and decide where you're going to work on and remain productive and ensure that, you get your tasks done and you feel great at the end of the day and you can kind of take that time off? How do you go about it?
Well, I'm usually up like 4 o'clock in the morning.
MashaAllah, wow, amazing.
So I take that time to pray, make extra prayer. I take that time also to do a little bit of meditation. And in my meditation, I think about, where do I want to go? Where do I see myself? So I do I'm big on positive thinking and that sort of thing. I start my day with a run, and I sit down and with my book and I plan out what are my tasks, like what do I need to accomplish? But I always try to focus on the bigger picture, like what do I want in the end? So inshallah, I would love to open a bigger spot, and employing more women to work and, sort of supporting that. So I always, whatever my plans are, I sort of direct it towards what my end goal is. And I know, okay, this is the most important thing I need to do. It may not be emails right now. Yeah. It needs to be maybe, okay, my social media is one big thing that I always try to keep up with because most people are on there for me. And so I always focus there the most. But basically, I'm just saying I focus on the most important thing that will get me to my end result. And I mean, sometimes it's tough, sometimes it's tough. The distractions at home, family life, my kids and stuff like that can kind of, but then if I don't get through those tasks, I know the next day the ones that I didn't check off, I go back to and I'm like, okay, this one is at the head of the list. So sometimes it doesn't work out, but for the most part, I try to knock out the really important things. I hope that answers your question.
Amazing, mashallah. No, of course, definitely. And there's a few things I want to touch. Number one, I'm really happy to hear that you run because this is something that I recently got into, and I just realized the power of running. It's so rejuvenating to do. It's such a rejuvenating activity. It really increases your energy. And it also really just feels amazing. And I didn't know that because I've always did it.
My creative juices start to flow.
Yeah.
I start thinking about things. I'd be like, oh, maybe I should come up with another treatment. And I'm like, yeah. And then when I get home, I'm like, write it down. Amazing. It's really crazy. So I really like running for that reason as well.
MashaAllah, it's amazing. Honestly, and that's what it is. And guys, there's really scientific backing behind that, which is when you're running, when you're doing exercises, no matter what exercise you do, but I've talked about it a lot. I talk about it to my coaches all the time to kind of do your exercise in the morning because it really increases that blood flow to your brain and all across your body. And so your brain kind of really activates and starts to, come up with these amazing ideas, which is not going to happen if you're waking up sluggish and the first thing you do is get on the computer, right? That's, the ideas you're going to get are probably not going to be very high quality.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm tired, I need to go back to bed.
Exactly. It's pretty much the extent of where you're going to get to. But that's amazing, mashallah. And one thing as well that you talked about, which is to start with the end in mind. And it's a big thing because, especially as an entrepreneur, the more your business grows, the more there are tasks that you can work on. The more things you can work on, the more things you can focus on. And there's always a giant to-do list. But I read this book, and I'm not sure if you read it. It's called The One Thing. Is that something that you read? Okay. Because the way you talk, it's like you really follow that principle, which is essentially this book talks about how as an entrepreneur, once you grow, you have to focus on the 80-20 rule, which is 20%.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah. So 20% of what you work on is going to give you 80% of your results. Yeah. And so, you have 100 tasks that you can work on, but only 20 of them are probably going to be what you need to do to get to where you want to be, inshallah. And the rest is, can be maintenance, can be design, can be other things that don't really make the business move. And in my opinion, if you're at a stage where, you kind of have that really big task list and your business is a little bit bigger, go ahead and start delegating some of those tasks that need to be done every day, right? That's a big thing. So delegating is huge. Have you hired any members to help you with this brand so far?
Right now, it's me and my family. So my husband and my children, they're always like packing boxes or, answering emails. Like they're the ones that are helping me right now. But that is definitely on my to-do list. Like if I can get somebody to do my social media, that would be a huge relief.
100%. That's such a big thing for me too. Honestly, it's always like I need this is just huge because it's really crazy that now like a business can exist without being on social media. It's a huge, but at the same time, when you're an entrepreneur, you're doing it all yourself. Like these things, you just realize like it kind of bothers me the time that I spend on there. Like I'm like you're editing photos, you're making posts. Exactly. You should be working on like high income, high output activities. Not editing a photo for Instagram. So I feel your pain 100%. It's an unfortunate reality, but really the best thing is to try and delegate it when you can, inshallah.
Yeah,
so
I'm totally there on that train. I'm like, now definitely need to delegate some of the stuff a lot easier. So I definitely have to put that on my list and make sure I get that out there.
And definitely, inshallah. Yeah. And it's just one of the steps that you take as you grow. And I'm happy that we get to touch upon that too. So I have one more question for you before you dive into Q&A, inshallah, sister. So guys, again, if you have questions for Sister Zakiyyah on creating a brand and as well, maybe opening up some sort of retail location, a spa, her journey, and some questions about the business itself, drop them in the comments, inshallah, so we can ask them. And before we dive into that, one question that I ask every single guest is, if you could meet Zakiyyah from, 3-4 years ago, or whenever you started Blumseed, right? When you were just in those initial phases, you were still putting it in those jars and, maybe giving some to your sister, and you could tell her one thing. What would that one thing be?
It's a good question. Keep going. Keep believing. I think, because like I said, I have those struggling moments at times, but I had it more so then. It was like, what's going to happen? Yeah. So keep believing you're on the right path. Don't give up. I think that's simply it.
Alhamdulillah, that's amazing. And to be honest, it's really interesting when I ask that question, because a lot of entrepreneurs will say something along those lines. And it's not because it's cliche, but it's because it really boils down to just that, which is, a lot of people sometimes think, there's a strategy that this person has that I don't have, and that's what's making them successful. Or there is a secret marketing technique that person knows, and I just need to find that out. Or, this new funnel that I need to create. And they get caught up in all those shiny objects. But the truth is that the only thing you need to do is just keep fighting every single day. And eventually, that door is going to open. If you keep knocking on the door every single day, eventually that door will open, inshallah. But you have to keep knocking. You can't knock once a week. You can't knock once a month. You can't knock once a year. You have to knock every single day, because if you don't knock every single day, if you miss a single day, that door is not going to open. You got to make sure to show up every single day, inshallah. So again, I just want to give a quick shout out to just all the gems that we're dropping right now on this podcast. There's so much value here, mashallah. So it's amazing.
Can I add one other thing? It just came in my mind.
Please. Let's go.
I would also say tell myself at that time to just be you. Because I think there were moments where I'm like, okay, well, this person's doing this and this person's doing that. And that sometimes can cloud where you're meant to really go and what Allah has in store for you and how you're meant to be different. So I think that is really important. Just be yourself. Put out stuff that represent who you are and what you believe in. And people see that when you come with that sort of honesty. So that would be a reminder I would tell myself at that time.
Of course. And a lot of people, they struggle with that. It's funny because when I was talking, I had a coaching call with the students that were on our program yesterday. And they were sharing about how sometimes they might hesitate to show some personality because they think, I need to be professional. I need to, I'm the face of my brand. But I keep really trying to stress to everyone that people these days, they don't really connect with brands. They don't connect with the faceless logo. They connect with the vision, the story behind the brand, really. And that's what they get along with. And it's actually a good thing to show that personality, to be yourself. And the people that will connect with that will resonate with it, will show up and they'll be your biggest fans, inshallah. So that's a huge thing. One last thing, actually, Zakiyah, that I forgot for us to touch upon, which is actually the future for Blumseed, right? And we slightly talked about that a little bit earlier, but I'd love to get a little bit more info what's in the works in terms of your hair care products and in terms of your head spas? You mentioned opening up more locations. What else can we get in terms of that vision that you're planning to go for?
More locations, for sure. Giving you more of more spa experience. So currently, right now, we're doing hair, but tying in a little bit of maybe facials as well, and just like what you would kind of get at other spas, but we're going to be more so hair related, and having events where we bring sisters together. I mean, we're already bringing sisters together, but events maybe where we're doing workshops, or we're talking about the importance of self-care, or we're having sort of like a poetry night. So other ways of sort of bringing us together and building that community of sisters is kind of what I see.
Amazing, mashallah. That's amazing. And that's huge because that's not available. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm in Montreal, Canada personally, so we're only a few hours away actually. But we don't have something like that here. I mean, not that I know of. So it would be huge to be able to have that. I mean, usually you'll have like, you know a sister and you kind of go to her house and that's usually what my sisters do. They'll kind of know someone and go to their house. But, you know, it would be awesome if they could actually have that full spa experience that other women get to have. You know, why not Muslim women? So it's just an amazing thing. And I really do hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses this venture for you and makes it easy for you, inshallah.
Well, thank you.
So time for Q&A, guys. And this is where we kind of put you on the spot, sister. So I hope you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right, let's make it happen, mashallah. So energy is high. We're going to dive into some questions, guys. Now is your chance. If you've ever thought of starting an online store, creating products, opening up a retail location, this is the time, guys. Don't hesitate to ask questions. So let's dive into the first one here as I scroll through the comments. We got a few. Let me just dive right in and pull one up here for you, inshallah. And okay, perfect. So while we're doing that, we have a question here from Sister Riz, and she says, are your products your own creation? Like the ingredients that you use, are they from your own research and development? I know we kind of briefly glanced over it, so I'd love to dive more into that with you.
Yeah, so the products are my own creation. I pretty much do it in my kitchen. But a lot of it is inspired by my grandmother, particularly because she grew her herbs in her backyard. And so growing up, I used to watch her, and I learned a lot about what ingredients to use for hair growth, for voluminous hair, healthy hair. And so I use a lot of those ingredients. A lot of them I can get out here. Some of them I grow in my backyard. And then some of them, well, we can't really travel yet, but a lot of them I used to bring back from Trinidad.
Amazing.
So I use a lot of those stuff in my products. So yes, I make them straight from my kitchen.
Wow.
And yeah, I do research. I'm always continuously doing research. I read a lot of books. When I started out, I read a lot of how to make certain products to get sort of an understanding, because you got to understand how much like essential oil to put in a product. There's a standard. So understanding that, I had to definitely read and educate myself.
That's amazing, mashallah. And so the kitchen alchemist has given you the answer straight from the kitchen. That's amazing. And so there's no excuse really, because it's, as you mentioned, like, especially with these products, these factories, you look at the ingredient list and it's like all these chemicals that you don't even know that they even existed. And
what is this?
Yeah, I realized it exactly. It's made in a lab somewhere, and for some reason you're putting it on your hair. But naturally, you can find ingredients that are good for your hair in nature, that are produced by nature. So the fact that you do that with your hair care products is just why I'm such a big fan. And I'll definitely be recommending them to my sisters as well, so they can take them out, inshallah. Another question here from Sister Faye. So she says, Zakiyah, during the starting point of your business, did you have any downfalls? So what was the greatest lesson from those moments that as women we can learn from you? So this is a challenge in terms of challenges. What kind of challenges did you have growing the business or starting it?
Well, I guess, we all go through different challenges in our business. At the beginning, it's, sometimes it's getting clientele. So working hard to put that out there. At times, business is busy, and then at one point it's very slow, and it's like, okay, what's happening? Why is it happening? But I guess it's staying focused, regardless of the up and down, staying focused on what your end goal is and why you're doing it in the first place. So for me, it was about bringing women together. For me, it was about teaching women how to practice self-care, loving themselves, taking care of themselves. So when I go back to that when I go through those hard moments, I think of, okay, I'm doing this because I want to bring women together. I'm doing this because it's important for us to learn about self-care. And I believe that when you practice self-care and when you feel good about yourself and taking care of yourself, you go out in the world and you feel great, right? And that's how I want us to feel. I want us to feel good and share that positive energy. So going back to your why, going back to why you're doing this in the first place.
That's an amazing answer. And so that really helps kind of ground you in terms of, when you have those moments of self-doubt, those moments where you maybe don't feel like, you want to do the work today, like you're motivated enough. And I think that's just such a great lesson for us to have and keep in mind. Another question we have, I can't seem to pull it up, but it's, what's the greatest lesson that you've learned from being an entrepreneur? So what was the greatest lesson that you got from this experience and from this journey of being a businesswoman?
The greatest lesson? I have to think about that for 1 second.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time.
The greatest lesson, I think it almost ties into the question before, is just sticking it out. Just sticking it out, continuously believing in why you're doing it in the first place. I didn't know that initially in the beginning, but I sort of learned that later on in the process that is important. And not everything is going to go perfectly. In the beginning, when you have the concept and the idea, you think, okay, wow, I have this great idea, it's going to go great. And then you get those times when it's not. And learning that's just how business flows, even just from speaking to other businesses, there's times when there's going to be hard times, so sort of preparing your mind for that and sticking with the end goal in mind.
Awesome, mashallah. That's amazing. So you guys heard it right here. There's another one, and this is going to be our last one for today, guys. So if you have any more, drop them in the comments, and what we'll do is I'll maybe tag Sister Zakiyyah. She can hop in when she has a minute or two to answer them, inshallah. But this is another one, and it's actually specifically about packaging. Let me see if I can pull it up specifically. But the sister was asking essentially, how did you package the product? So this is a specific packaging question. So maybe she wants a little bit of help in terms of the branding side of things, how you branded, package the products themselves.
Well, when I initially started, I kind of mapped out who my client was. So who my client was, what did they look like, where did they shop, and sort of created a vision board. And I put my vision board together, and I put together like the colors that I like, the look that I was going for. And so that kind of helps you in terms of, okay, what sort of font are you going to use for your labels, and what kind of jars you're going to need to create that feeling or that look. So I say start with a vision board. Pick out the colors that you want for this vision board, start there, and then research different companies. Like there's a company that I use and I don't mind sharing it. It's called SKS Bottles. And I get my bottles and jars from there. But there's other companies like Aroma Organics. I can't remember the name now. But just do your research in terms of, different companies that are close to you, more so, that's easy to get to get your jars and stuff like that. But I would say those two things. Create that vision board to create the look, and then, research where you can get those jars and bottles from. And keep keep everything local if you can.
Yeah, that's a big thing too, because then that allows you also to say that everything is made in whatever country, in our case in Canada, and that's also a big selling point, especially now with COVID and everything happening. People are looking to essentially buy local, right? So it's really a huge thing, and people are starting to be more attentive to that, which is also important. So thank you for that advice. I hope that answers your questions, guys. This is it for our Q&A portion. Sister Zakiyyah, it was honestly an absolute pleasure, filled with gems, filled with insights. I mean, we explored so many different topics, and I think we have a lesson to learn from every single one. Now, where can people support Blumseed? How can they connect with you, follow what you do, and maybe even show up to the spot, the location? Where can we find that?
I want to start by saying thank you. It was really, really fun.
It's my pleasure.
You can definitely check me out on, check out the website. It's www.blumseed, Blumseed.com. And Instagram on Instagram at Blumseed.com, and Facebook as well. And you can also shoot me an email at info@blumseed.com.
Amazing.
And yeah.
We'll drop all the links. My good friend and brother Katami, who is moderating, will also drop all the links in the comments, guys. And we'll drop them in the description of the podcast, no matter what platform you are on, whether YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Look out for the Blumseed website link in the description. One thing, sister, is I looked at the website. I couldn't find the exact address on the website of the spa. Where is it located in Toronto if people want to actually visit?
Yes, it's at 45 Wickseed Ave. That's like more East York location. That's like major intersection would be like Bayview and Eglinton Avenue East. Yeah, awesome. I'm located there.
Beautiful. Awesome, guys. So all the links have been dropped in the comments, and we'll make sure to share them in the description, guys. Zakiyah, it was an absolute pleasure. Inshallah, maybe we can have you in a future episode where you can now tell us that you have 2 locations or 3, and we can celebrate that together. Inshallah, that would be awesome.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Definitely, and likewise. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to join the group if you haven't already, inshallah. And we'll see you next episode. Every single week, we'll bring on a Muslim entrepreneur to help you in terms of growing your business and support you by sharing their journeys. See you next time. As-salamu.